Look, there's there's a lot more restrictions and rules and everything that come into play here, as opposed to buying a property in your name compared to a self-managed super fund. So a lot of the stuff's done the same way, but there's just different rules and everything that apply to how you can do it. So the rule of thumb used to be a 30% deposit, and the whole banking space really shrunk for who was offering self-managed super fund loans. There used to be a lot of players in that space, and then it shrunk probably down to maybe 4 lenders where that was it. And that was the worst. And now over the last sort of 5 years or so, lenders have started entering that space again. So now we are getting more options, and they are being a bit more creative with the products they offer as well. So you can get deposits and around 20% now. They are allowing that. There are other rules.
80% LVR.
Yep, 80% LVR. There are also rules around how much of a balance you need to have. Some banks do want to see a certain balance there beforehand, but some want you to retain a certain percentage of your initial balance after the transaction's done. So what that means is they might say, okay, after the transaction and everything happens, we want you to retain at least 10% of your initial balance. So if you had 200,000 as your starting balance, you bought a property, they'd want you to have at least $20,000 in cash in the fund at all times. And the main reason they have that is to try and mitigate risk. If things do pop up and there are expenses for the property, you are able to pay for that and not be caught out. Or even if something happens and just to meet repayments as well. So there are a lot more rules to abide by with this.
I think that's a good rule to abide by anyway. Yeah.
Well, the biggest risk I see is usually liquidity risk for self-managed super funds, because the way they get treated is your contributions as well as the income that the property generates are going to be everything that keeps this going. So we've got limits and restrictions on how much we're allowed to contribute into our super funds per year. So if you're hitting those caps and you can't put any extra cash into the super fund, then you're gonna come undone and you're gonna have cash flow issues.
Can you run through those caps, those superannuation contributions?
Yeah, so it changes. It changes every year. It's going up, down, up, down. Concessional caps this year, 27,500. But previous years, it was 25,000, then 27,000, and it's just kind of gone up and down, up and down. I think it might have been as low as 22.5 maybe at one point. But you do have special rules around what you can carry forward over the previous 5 years. So if you haven't been hitting your cap every year for the last 5 years, you can actually jump onto your MyGov or the ATO portal and see how much cap space you've got available, and you're allowed to bring that previous 5 years of cap space forward into a future year.
That is an amazing accounting little hack for myself. Where I'm like, and other people may be thinking, all right, I want to buy, especially listening to this podcast, I want to buy as much, contribute to my own personal property investments through, my personal income after paying tax, and of course, before I start building my self-managed super fund. And that's what I've made a decision to do, is like not put as much into my super. I still do to bring down some tax things and stuff like that. But that's really good to note as a strategy of like, oh, I can load more. Are you saying, for example, if 1 year I don't put 20, I put like, let's just say I put 10 grand in over the next 3 years into super. That means technically if it's 25 grand a year, for those 3 years, I'm putting 30 grand in where I could have put 75 grand in.
Yeah.
So I can put the rest in at another time, or
you would be able to put 45 concessionally in as a contribution,
cool.
And then not breach any rules or have to pay any extra tax to the ATO. Yeah, so that's over a 5 year period. So yeah, when you're talking about these calculations, it's always easier just to say flat 25 for those examples.
Yeah, especially for my brain, because we already spoke about this before. I'm not the best at maths explanation.
Yeah. So, and like you were just touching on a bit, there is a fine line to walk around.
Yeah, a big part.
Working out if this is something that you want to do early on, especially
a lot of people going
especially for younger
thinking,
clients.
hey, there's we can manufacture
you talk to young clients about putting money into super, and none of them really want to do it.
Just like you
at least not off the bat, because it's something they can't touch for such a long time. They don't want to lock that away. Maybe they've got other goals of a home deposit and things like that. The money could be better utilised. But the effects of compounding and everything like that. You start salary sacrificing or putting money into super
if you want to buy
20.
property,
By the time you're 60 and you're able to access it tax free, like that's
Andy would be able to shed a bit more light on that as well.
Next level compounding effect there. So
yeah,
if property is something that you want to do in the self-managed super fund, then putting those contributions away early can definitely help get there.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, if I buy 2 properties over a 3-year period, or somebody buys two properties over a 3-year period, and then they grow and they earn a bit of income and they're positively geared, then that gets put to your taxable income, but you could take, instead of paying more tax on the income, you could take a bit out and then put it into your super, and you have a tax sort of strategy around that, I guess.